is scrambling to make sense of the new reality. America engaging with Russia. Donald Trump had a call with Vladimir Putin on Wednesday to talk about ending the war in Ukraine. Now, this is just the first step. A deal still needs to be hammered out, and yet it offers a glimmer of hope for an end to all the bloodshed. That being said, what kind of deal are we looking at? Will Putin accept? What will he accept, and what is he willing to give up? Also, where does it leave the other party in this war? Ukraine. We ask because Trump called Putin directly. Only after that did he inform Ukraine's President Volodymyr Zelensky. It left Zelensky blindsided, but he seems to have processed the information now, and this is what he said.
It's important that everything does not go according to Putin's plan, in which he wants to do everything to make his negotiations bilateral between him and the United States of America. We, as a sovereign country, simply will not be able to accept any agreements without us.
Zelensky said he won't accept a deal in which Ukraine has no say. It is, after all, a sovereign nation, so it won't just take whatever it is given. Look at the American response to that.
Will Ukraine have a seat at that table for those negotiations?
Of course they would. I mean, they're part of it. We would have Ukraine, we'd have Russia, and we'll have other people involved too.
And this is what Russia had to say.
One way or another, Ukraine, of course, will participate in the negotiations. Of course, there will be the bilateral Russian-American track of this dialogue, too, and the track that will be related to Ukraine's involvement. During the call, Riyadh was mentioned as possible location for the meeting of two presidents. After the call, President Trump said that he sympathizes with the Saudi leadership as the partner state. It is also a common knowledge that Putin has very good relations with the Crown Prince.
Moscow says Ukraine will be involved in one way or another, but the priority is bilateral discussions with the US, because for Russia, Ukraine hardly matters in the grand scheme of things. It is Trump who will have the final say on the war and on the day after. You see, Russia is looking at the aftermath too. It wants the diplomatic isolation to end. It wants to be back on the global stage. For the last 3 years, Europe and the US tried to cut Moscow off. But Trump wants to take a different approach. He said Russia should be welcomed back to the G7. The G7, as you know, is a group of 7 advanced economies. Until 2014, it was the G8, the group of 8. Russia was the 8th member. But it was expelled 9 years back because it had invaded Ukraine and taken over the Crimean Peninsula. This happened in 2014, and since then the G8 has been the G7. But now Trump wants Russia back in the club.
Do you want to have Russia back to the G7, sir?
I'd love to have them back. I think it was a mistake to throw them out. Look, it's not a question of liking Russia or not liking Russia. It was the G8, and you know, I said, what are you doing? You guys, all you talk about is Russia, and they should be sitting at the table. I think Putin would love to be back.
Clearly, Trump wants to normalize relations with Moscow, and Putin would like it too, although Russia says it is not interested in the G7, but it's hard to imagine they would refuse to rejoin if asked. We will get more clarity after a meeting between Putin and Trump. They are said to be planning one.
During the call, Riyadh was mentioned as possible location for the meeting of two presidents. After the call, President Trump said that he sympathizes with the Saudi leadership as the partner state. It is also a common knowledge that Putin has very good relations with the Crown Prince.
We told you about this yesterday. Trump and Putin may meet in Saudi Arabia. It is seen as a neutral venue. And Saudi Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman shares good ties with both leaders. But now Saudi Arabia might have competition because China wants to join the party. China wants to play peacemaker and host Trump and Putin. But look at the equations here. For Russia, China is a no-limits partner. For the US, China is a trade and tech adversary. So obviously, the Americans won't agree to China as the meeting venue. The White House has said that the offer from Beijing is quote-unquote not viable at all. Good point. We'll tell you what else is not viable. Excluding Ukraine from the peace talks and excluding Europe. How will the US convince the Europeans to butt out? How will it convince Zelensky to accept Putin's offer? There's a lot that does not look viable at the moment. although it may start becoming clearer in the coming days. Zelensky is set to meet the US Vice President tonight. J.D. Vance is in Germany for the annual Munich Security Conference. Zelensky is there too. They were scheduled to meet earlier today, but the talks got postponed. US officials asked for some time. They say that they're reviewing the new deal that Zelensky has signed. This is the deal Zelensky has signed, giving the US access to Ukraine's rare earth minerals. Zelensky, of course, signed it in the hope of getting continued US support. Let's see how the US reacts to this. J.D. Vance will meet Zelensky once the deal is reviewed and probably explain Ukraine's new reality. We will be keeping a track of all the developments here.